And we're back. Welcome back to our weekly hangout session where I sit here and talk to nobody. Just kidding. I know you're listening. And you guys sit there and listen. So, back to the I gotta have a name for this weekly update show or something, but something better than that. All right. So, don't freeze. Eat real food. It's been friggin' cold here. Thankfully, I don't think we canceled any classes because it's cold. The heater's been running, and we got no problems there. Got a whole heck of a lot of snow. If you can see, like, literally 3 feet out to my right, there's a mountain. I mean, it's easily 5 feet tall and 20 feet long of all of the snow from last week that's just piled up here. So, lots of great fun. Rather than freezing, eat real food. So that's kind of a joke. But that's our principle this week. So principle this week has been principle number 2, which is also the kind of first of our nutritional tenets. And we say the first thing that matters most when we're talking about food is eat real food most of the time in order to survive and thrive. So eat real food most of the time. We kind of got these two pieces here. What is real food and what is most of the time? So, like I said last week, I brought my thing this week. Ka-chow. See this? New City Transformation Plan. So this is what I was talking about, how we kind of have this thought process of starting in a place of assessment, working into a place of gaining an education, right? Understanding something more, into a phase of actual action before we actually have the change or the transformation that we're really looking for, right? And so I mentioned that this kind of follows this 4-quadrant idea. I should really know who came up with this idea. But where we go from unconscious incompetence to a state of conscious incompetence, right? So we assess to bring awareness so that, hey, instead of we don't know what we don't know, we go to a state of I now know what I don't know. And so in that state, then I need education. From there, through that education process, we get to the point where now we are consciously competent. But that's not actually the goal. The goal is to actually be a changed person so that we can get to a point of unconscious competence. We're good at something, and we don't really have to even think about it, right? It doesn't cost us extra energy in order to, in this case, this week, think about what we're going to eat. We have built in an environment which supports what we're trying to do. It supports the goal. It supports the change that we're trying to create. So, in light of that, these questions this week are kind of to dig into this assessment. Where are we at? Where are we coming from? Okay. So the first question I posed this week is, how do we actually qualify what real food is? And this at a high level is pretty easy to understand. One of my favorite answers that I got this week was, if it has a mother or comes from the dirt. I think that's a pretty good answer. That is kind of our starting point. Does it have a mother, right? Was it a born living thing? Now I suppose we wouldn't consider humans food, but all analogies fall short somewhere. And then is it something that naturally came from the earth? Bad things happen when we deviate from that. So, when we look at the foods that we have naturally been given to eat, and we start altering them, whether that be as simple as cooking them in a bad oil, right? So first of all, this already breaks down because that that seed oil, for example, was already altered, right? We already took something you look at corn, for example, and while I'm not going to try to argue that corn is a great and highly nutritious and nutrient-dense food, it's pretty obvious when you look at a corn stalk and you can see what the fruit is on this plant, right? It's a grain, not a fruit, but you understand what I'm saying. To extract oil out of this plant, just at face value, that sounds like a lot of work. And in fact, the work that it takes to extract oil out of that doesn't end up being something that's very good for the human body. So we start to get into these, the more we bastardize that natural process. Let's look at an animal, for example. When we look at a cow living the life that it was really designed to live, ranging on open pasture land, eating grass, that is going to be the most real, the highest quality beef that we can eat. The more that cow's life is limited, and the more we alter that cow's diet, the more then that cow also gets sick, and the more we have to medicate that thing, this really just starts to spiral out of control really, really quickly. And so while there's a huge spectrum here when we're talking about real food, and especially when we try to qualify, okay, what do we mean by real food? Another one of my favorite answers this week was, if I can touch it, it's real, right? Well, there's a very small sliver of truth in that. But there's this huge spectrum. And so what we want to do is to say, hey, all things considered, not only what we know to be true from an objective nutrient density standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint, also from a time commitment standpoint. To have the most perfect diet in the world would cost a lot of time and money and work and effort. And that's the reality of it. And so what we really want to aim at is taking all of those things into account. How can we kind of create an environment within our weekly rhythms of buying groceries or getting food sourced locally? How can we elevate this as much as possible, right? Taking all those things into consideration, I'll just tell you that I'm feeding a whole house full of kids, and I cannot afford to purchase the absolute highest quality of things that I know would be more nutrient dense, right? And so when that's a factor, what I'm trying to do is kind of make the best decisions possible, right? Work within the confines of, this is the amount of time I have to spend on, preparing food. This is the amount of money that we can spend on it. And we're going to work within those constraints to make this as real as possible, right? We'll get into more factors of that when we consider other aspects of food and eating, like macronutrients and all of this stuff. But as it pertains to real food, there are limitations, right? But we want to elevate that as much as we can. Second thing here is most of the time, that's pretty nebulous. Most of the time could mean 51%, right? 51% of the time, I'm eating real food, whatever I've qualified as real food. Realistically, though, we're probably aiming at something higher, right? Some people like to think about this as like the 80-20 rule. Some people like to kind of draw from one of our future principles, thinking about occasionally we need to eat regardless of nutritional value, and saying that, hey, I've got kind of some guidelines around that, and everything else outside of those times, I'm going to take complete control over, right? And so there's a lot of different ways to kind of skin this, but ultimately what most of the time boils down to is when we kind of come back to here and when we say, hey, we have a certain goal, we have a certain outcome that we're looking for. The question is the environment you're putting yourself into, is it getting you that result, right? And so that most of the time needs to map to the result you're looking for, right? So that's a little way to look at that. Yeah, what do we got tomorrow? Ooh. So this is a little preview for you. What's the biggest inhibitor of you eating more real foods? It's really easy. It's really easy to eat things that we would not consider real foods. They're subsidized. They're really cheap. They're really accessible. I kid you not. The food that is in the closest proximity to me right now as I'm sitting here, okay? It's whatever is over there at Starbucks. It's whatever is over here at Quick Star. It's whatever is over here at these restaurants over here, right? I know that the majority of those foods are going to be full of things that I really don't want to be putting into my body, right? And so we got to admit that kind of taking control of this, it does require more work. It does require you to only shop at certain stores and maybe to only buy certain things from those stores, right? Even the health food stores, they still have plenty of things that I really wouldn't recommend people filling their diets with. So it's an uphill battle, unfortunately. And so we have to put in a lot of work if we are truly going to kind of take control over this area of our life. So, that's the real food for you. What else we got? So we've been working out too, not just talking about food, although I feel like I could talk about food for a long time. We tested a clean and jerk this week. So one of our Olympic lifts, one of the two Olympic weightlifting lifts that you see at the Olympics. We use these lifts a lot in many different applications and styles and complexes and all of this stuff. But the lift, clean and jerk from the floor to the shoulder, from the shoulder overhead, that's one of those two core lifts that all of this other stuff is built around, right? The thing that's tested at the Olympics. So that was fun. And then, so that day, this is actually like, I've probably written this exact day of programming. I'm going to say at least 3 or 4 times over the history of the gym. Max out a clean and jerk. And then part 2, go into 30 reps for time at a significantly lighter weight. So there's a prescribed weight on that 30 reps for time. And in order to kind of get the stimulus that we're looking for out of that test, it needs to be a relatively low percentage to that max load. So what's nice about doing this is that's a really highly technical movement. The clean and jerk is, both of the Olympic lifts are. And so this gives us an extra amount of time to really work on some of those mechanics. It's much easier to teach somebody how to squat and how to deadlift and how to press. And when we are practicing those things, we can really lean into using them as tools to build strength. And while the Olympic lifts are incredible tools to build strength, to build power, to build speed, they come with a higher price tag. They come with a higher barrier to entry, and that technical value of the movements is generally a pretty big inhibitor to, honestly, I'll say anybody who's not had a significant amount of practice with them. So I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I still have pretty significant technical limitations with some of the Olympic lifts. I would say of the 3 lifts, so clean separated from jerk, separated from snatch, I feel pretty darn proficient with the clean, and only moderately proficient with certain variations of the jerk and the snatch, right? And I've been doing this stuff for a long time. So it just goes to show that technical limiting factor is massive. So having some extended time on a day like that to put in some work to clean up some of that movement quality is really helpful. But then when we are already in the context of, hey, how heavy can you go, maximum on this, it also can help us point to the next part to say, hey, even though the prescribed weight on here is 135 pounds, that's like way too close to what you just showed your max ability was. We want to pull this back in order for you to get the intended stimulus out of this. I'm going to put one little caveat on here. A test like this, so even if you don't hit the intended stimulus, which is a really high output, busting through these 30 reps, as fast as possible, because the overall volume of a workout like this is super low, it does give us a little bit of flexibility to say, okay, right now your max clean and jerk might be, let's just say 185, right? So that you can do the 135, and it's not a max load for you. However, unless you're crazy good at moving high percentage weights, that's going to take you probably, let's just say 5 minutes. Okay. And, a good goal for this workout is getting to like that 3 minute mark. If you're doing 1 rep at a time and staying close to the bar, you can get under 3 minutes doing single reps this whole time. Now, going faster than that, then you start getting into, hey, how long can you hold on to the bar and all this stuff, to the point where the best in the world can do a workout like this at that loading, and do all 30 reps unbroken, and they are trying to move as fast as humanly possible and do this in like 60 seconds. But since it is lower total volume, it does provide us a unique opportunity to say, hey, go to war with this today, right? Go to war with this 135-pound barbell. It's going to take you a while. You might take 2, 3, even 4 times as long as some other people. But if you're willing to grind your way through that, this can be a unique testing data point to say that, hey, while your max clean and jerk was 185, it took you 8 minutes to get through those 30 reps. But then as we see your overall peak strength go up, as we see your technique improve, as we see, your raw strength improve, and you get your clean and jerk up to 225, and now all of a sudden you can hit that sub 3 minute grace, is what this workout's called. That's a unique opportunity to draw that correlation between, hey, when I get generally stronger, that's like the thing that's going to move the needle most. So I can't remember who has said this, but remember hearing some coaches talk one time about how unless you are moving a weight that is, I think they said like 40% or less of your 1 rep max on any given lift, the best thing you can do to improve at moving that load more efficiently and quicker and getting through that in a metabolic conditioning type of setting, the best thing you can do is get stronger, right? That is going to move the needle the most. If is lowering the percentage that you're actually working at, right? So I talked way too long on that one day, but that was a fun one. So coming off of that, just to show a little bit of like variance in our workouts and just the programming in general. So heavy barbell day, short, super high intensity, complex lifting on the conditioning on that day. Swinging way different than that. Tuesday, we've got some lower body accessory work. If you come across the knees over toes guy, I love a handful of the movements that he's really popularized. The signature one being this ATG split squat. So single leg dominant movement, which already, that's going to cut the total loading we're able to use down quite a lot. Plus, it's long range of motion, right? We're looking at clean and jerk. Some people are doing power cleans and a push jerk, right? So the range of motion that you're actually going through in the kind of squat pattern is significantly reduced. So this next day, taking your knee to full flexion. That's the goal of that movement, right? Close your knee as much as possible. Bring your glutes in contact with your heel, full coverage of hamstring over your calf, right? So at significantly lighter loads. Paired with then conditioning for that day, it's all machine work, okay? It's on the bike and on the rower. Put in 18 minutes of work, significantly longer time frame, significantly lower barrier to entry. As far as, the most technical thing here is our pulling on the rower, your technique on the rower. Other than that, this is almost exclusively a test of capacity, right? Not limited by any sort of skill. Very, very little skill involved in a workout like that. And so that's the type of kind of variance that you're going to see day in and day out, right? Going from highly technical barbell movement to there's not a barbell in sight the next day. Then today, tomorrow, we've got, did an old open workout, 12.5 with some thrusters and some pull-ups. And then tomorrow doing some ground overhead. So most people will be doing a snatch with the barbell and some burpees, bar-facing burpees in more of an interval style. So continuing our prep towards the open. You're going to see a lot of barbell, a lot of gymnastics, and then, just keep on keeping on with as far as getting fitter, man. Let's look forward to next week. So next week, continuing our principles, we dig into times of feasting on and fasting from food. I'll save talking about that till next week because I've always got lots to say. As far as our lifts, we are going to do some squatting. Maybe one of my least favorite movements, just because I'm not very good at it. An overhead squat, and on that day, we're going to also hit a front squat. Again, I'll talk about this more on next week, kind of why I'm making some of those decisions. As well as a push press, we're going to hit. And then the open workout, going to do one from 2015 with some cleans and some handstand push-ups. That'll be great. What else I got here? I had notes. I haven't looked at them once. If you know me, that sounds pretty accurate. Oh, yeah, I mentioned this, my transformation plan. It is still January. Can you believe that January is over half done? By definition, it's almost February. However, we're still offering that first month deal. So $65 for your first month. Click on the stuff or send me a message, right? DM me. I'll send the link straight to you. You click on it and away you go. Don't forget, visit newcity.fitness/store to get a sweatshirt like this. I changed my sweatshirt. Did you notice that I wore the same shirt twice? I have at least 2 of those, so it probably wasn't the same one, and it definitely got washed in between. But I did notice that I wore the same sweatshirt 2 times in a row. New sweatshirt here. Still black and white. That's my favorite. There's some colorful options on there that other people appreciate more than I do. Oh, actually, shoot, man. Look at me go. Just going to strip down here. Got one of these, too. Rip this design off. It would help if I moved away from the microphone. Ripped off this design from CrossFit Mayhem. Ever heard of him, Rich Froning? You can get those exclusively. Not the CrossFit Mayhem ones, the New City Fitness ones. You can get those exclusively at newcity.fitness/store. Order it up. Got some merch orders this past week. Sounds like this is working. Cool. I think that's all. Let me find the quit button. If you've ever got questions and stuff, or even better, if you're ever free on a Thursday afternoon, you want to come sit in here and talk with me, dude, hit me up. I'd love to have a guest on here.